1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay.
Hey.
I think we're good. Give me something just to make sure your side's working.
I'm a scatting man.
That's gonna be the ending clip.
Perfect.
Oh. Welcome to our podcast about the systems and the games we play and how those inspire the ones we make. I'm Sam.
And I'm CJ, and this is Systems in Play.
We are back.
Gotta get my radio voice for that last bit.
Welcome. Coming at you live, Big Dog and the Horse.
There's the end clip right there.
We need more, we need a sound effects board.
No, we don't. We do not.
That's what the podcast has been missing.
Yeah.
The people crave a fart noise every so often.
But hey, we're back.
Yeah, it's been a hot second since we've done a regular episode. Because it was Stretcherous, and then before that we had our guest episode with Blake.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's been like, I don't know, a couple episodes.
It's been a whole month, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah, and like a month and a half if you count like the weeks before and the week after.
True.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Oh, man. It feels weird.
Yeah, feels
but
good.
It feels right.
Feels good to be in the correct room configuration.
Yeah.
We got a little, not lazy, but we were doing things a little different during Stretchers because we didn't want to rearrange everything, and that caused some issues for CJ when he was editing that one.
If my editing skills are up to par, you didn't notice, so.
Yeah, nobody noticed. I'm certain of it.
I noticed.
Oh, well, speaking of Stretcherous, GMT Game Jam is over, and the results were announced. We were number one. We won. They sent us a big trophy and $1 million in cash.
And Mark Brown gave us hugs, each one of us. It was great.
He came and he fed Merlin some treats and gave him a collar that said, "You're the son of a winner."
It was great. It was amazing. No, do you want to know our actual placement? Drum roll.
Missed a couple zeros there.
Yeah, just a few. We were.
I don't remember, 1,300?
Oh, 1312.
1312.
Yeah.
But out of 7,000, which, I, considering that was our first real time using Godot, our second game jam, I'm happy with that. It was cool.
I would say it was a win. We got a comment from one of our favorite games, Cappy and Tappy. They actually came and played our game, which was so nice.
Yeah, it is cool. Like the meme where the two people shake hands, the two strong guys shake hands. Both of us making Tetris themed games.
Except our hand wouldn't be nearly as strong.
No, it's like one giant beefy veiny hand, and then a little Peter Parker shrimpy, Peter Parker's pre-Spider-Man.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger and then SpongeBob on it. That's what it was. But thank you, Declan Morrison. Really kind of you, man.
Yeah. Cappy and Tappy was so good. In fact, I believe it was number 8.
I think I saw
the
that,
whole thing, which is just really freaking cool. The only complaint I had about that game is it took me a minute to get the controls, but once I did, I had such a good time with that game. It was just so creative, so many good ideas. It just felt like they got to spend the entire jam iterating on the concept that they had from the beginning, and you can tell it came out great.
Yeah, it was really good.
Stretcherous also came out really good. I had a lot of fun. I'm proud of it. I think we did good.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just Tetris with an extra step. That's all it. After 3 days of making Tetris, that's all it was. But it was good.
I think that was the place we scored lowest in was creativity. I think it was style overall. Well, what were the categories?
I always miss this other one. It's style, creativity, and enjoyment.
Ah, okay. So I think it was style, enjoyment, and then creativity in that order.
I
But
will say we got almost a straight 4 on style. We got a 3.9.
nice. Hey, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's out of 5, correct?
Yeah, don't. Yeah, we don't have to. We don't have to give them that part. But yeah, no. Style was our best one. Our best rank, which is good.
Yeah, I'm happy with how the game ended up in terms of visuals, and I think did we talk about the comments that we've got so far on the game in terms of like the feedback?
I don't know if we had them all by the time we recorded that last devlog episode. So no, I don't think we did.
I think the biggest takeaway was we viewed the power-ups in the game, which, take one of your Tetronimos and stretch it out. We viewed that as a gift being given to the players, but I think most people viewed it as more of a stage hazard. They viewed it as a power down instead of a power up.
Right.
Which makes sense, and I think lines up with my experience as well, but is just, it took us so long to even get that working that we never really got to iterate and play test on that.
And because we saw it as like a reward, we only spawned them when you actually scored. And I think that was a big mistake. We should have just kept spawning them like every time you drop a piece or every time you use it.
Yeah.
So that it could either be a hindrance or it could be a power up.
Right.
I think that would have been the smarter way to go. But that's the cool thing about the jam was all the comments and people being like, "Hey, you should have done this." I'm like, "Oh my God, you're right. This makes so much more sense."
Yeah, it makes sense in retrospect, but I just, we were just so we were fighting for our lives, just trying to get the damn thing to run.
Yeah. That's this is why. What am I trying to say? Early access. I don't know why. This is why early access is important.
Yeah.
You can get that feedback from your community.
Early access or just play testing in general. Let people play your game before you put it out in the world.
Oh yeah.
Because really, for us, making that change would have been a matter of like 10 minutes, maybe. It is a very simple change, but sometimes it's those seemingly small details that make the big difference. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm still proud of how it turned out. I was playing a bunch of games, trying to rate other people's games as they were coming out. I found myself coming back to Stretchus a few times and playing that.
Yeah,
it was fun.
There was a point where I wanted to get some screenshots from it, and then I just played it for like 30 minutes. I was like, "What happened?" I got lost. I got mesmerized by the music.
I know all these screenshots I'm seeing they're pretty good because they all they're different in that they show how the scaling works. Great job on that.
Thank you. I was trying to, how do I make a static image show what the game is about?
Yeah, it's kind of hard, yeah.
So, that was Stretchus. It was fun. Looking forward to do more game jams. Congrats to all the winners. Congrats to everybody who participated. And thanks to everybody who left a comment on the game.
Yeah. And again, shout out to you, random citizen, who taught me about Beatbox. It's a great website.
Oh, you did end up using that, right?
Yes.
Hell
all the sound effects minus the one that we did ourselves was done in Beatbox.
We should have put at the end of the episode, the last devlog episode, should have put the nice clip at the end.
You're right.
And hindsight.
No. Missed opportunity.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go play Stretchus and see if you can get a greater than 4 line clear.
It's possible.
It's possible. So yeah, that's that. And CJ, I've got a question for you.
I'm all ears.
What is the worst experience you've ever had with a game?
Okay, you asked me this before the episode start, and I had to do some Googling because the worst game I ever played is not something I think about. It is very forgettable.
Yeah.
And before we talk about the worst game I've played, I want to talk about what I found by doing some Google searching.
Okay.
So I know that It was definitely the PS2, PS3 era of games where I played the worst one, because by the time the PS4 came out, I was doing more research on things before I bought them.
Yeah, fair.
And I was Googling it, worst games on PS3, and I got Mortal Kombat versus DC as one of the
Excuse
answers.
me?
Yeah.
Excuse that.
I knew
No.
I knew you'd have some strong feelings about that one.
Okay, I admit that might not be like the greatest game ever,
Yeah.
but by God, if it isn't fun,
It was a fun little couch co-op thing,
yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. It was just, I don't know. I think you were the one who told me about it. I got it for like $20 at Walmart, and it's cool. You can play Mortal Kombat characters. You can play DC characters. I actually beat it, which was pretty rare for me. It's probably the only fighting game I've ever played all the way through. Subspace Emissary would be the other, but whatever. No, that game's fun. That game's fun. Whoever made that list, you're wrong.
Yeah.
That game's fun.
I was going to say, I found that weird. I also found PlayStation All-Stars was on there. And for both of these games, I get it, but they're not the worst. Like, I liked PlayStation All-Stars.
Yeah. Where's like the random unplayable PlayStation download game?
Right. But
Huh.
anyway, tangent over. The real games that I found to be the worst ever. One of them's a cheat answer. I emulated Jak and Daxter: The Lost Frontier on PSP. First off, it was bad. Second off, the emulator couldn't run it. So that would be my cheat answer, because I didn't actually play it that much.
That's fair.
Actual answer was Bubsy the Woolies. Bubsy the Woolies released for free, I think, on PlayStation Plus at one point. I'm like, all right, I'll try this, just because I know it's really bad.
Like notoriously bad.
Notoriously. And hey, it was, but believe it or not, it was not good.
How much did you play? How much of Bubsy
The Woolies.
could you stomach?
The first level.
Okay.
The first level, there's like a UFO boss, which is BS. Bubsy is a character that does quips a lot. He's like one of those smart mouth characters, and it's not fun if he does the same quip every 5 seconds.
What could possibly go wrong?
Pilot's license? What for? Fucking horrible. But yeah, that would probably be the worst game I've ever played.
That's fair. That's fair. What do you say was the worst part of the experience for you? Was it the quips, or was it the mechanics? Or were the quips like an insult added on to the poor mechanics?
I want to say it was probably the overall vibe mixed with... I don't think the mechanics were terrible. It was a platformer, and I'm not huge on platformers anyway.
Fair.
I think it was the overall vibe mixed with how boring and mundane a platformer can be.
I see. Yeah, that's fair.
From a big company. If this was some indie game, I wouldn't have cared as much. But it was Bubsy, who's already like kind of a big name.
Right. Who publishes Bubsy?
I don't even know. See, when it came out, I wanted to say it was like, oh, everyone knows Bubsy's not good, so they're coming out and they're going to make an actual good one and make fun of how bad the old ones were.
Yeah.
No, they just did it again. Wait, it wasn't... shit. Bubsy 3D was the 1996 platformer game, the one on PS1. I meant the new Bubsy platformer, not Bubsy 3D, my bad.
What's that one called?
I don't even know. Bubsy the Woolies. Woolies.
Yeah. I do remember like randomly hearing about a new Bubsy game.
I'm gonna go back and edit me saying the Woolies over every time I say Bubsy 3D.
But leaving the part where you correct yourself.
Exactly. But yeah, that's probably the worst one. What about you, man?
So, like you, I had to think about this for longer than I expected to. I think probably most games that I played that I didn't like, I just forgot about. There's only so much room up there in that noggin, and I think things that I don't like just tend to be pushed out and forgotten rather than like held onto with spite and animosity.
Yeah.
But I was going through my Steam page and I found a game and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the only review I have on Steam because I was so frustrated with this game. It's a newer game. It's called Nour, Nour.
I haven't heard of this one.
It is an experimental game. I think the full title is like Nour Play with Your Food. It's an experimental game.
I have heard of this one.
It's like it's a physics simulation where you like
I see.
take food and you can like stretch it out or throw it across the room, and you can like blend it together. Okay, well you can tell that I don't have I'm frustrated with the game because first of all, the controls were very, very unintuitive. I could not I just felt like I was playing Twister with my fingers, trying to figure out how to actually get the game to do what I wanted it to do. Something that didn't really go in favor of the game was it's not really a game as much as it's an experimental physics simulation, which is fine. There's plenty of room for that in the gaming sphere. Mm-hmm. However, there's no progression, really. There's no there's nothing pushing me forward. And when I'm frustrated with the controls and can't really figure out what I can do, there's nothing that I'm supposed to do, but I don't even understand what I can do or how to do the things that I want to do. This was like a $10, $20 game. I got it because my fiance really likes, she just likes seeing high quality depictions of food. It's like very satisfying to her. And I'm like, oh, perfect. Like this cool game where we can just like look at these really nice renders of food and like mess around. And it was just like pulling teeth the whole time, getting it to do anything. And I gave her the controller and she's like, I want to like this. The models look good, but I don't know what to do. I feel like it's just frustrating because of the controls. And then the physics tended to break. And when the only thing your game is supposed to do is be a physics simulation. Mm-hmm. When things start to break or not work like you would expect, that's not great. And I played it. I tried to give it a shot. I think I played it for like an hour and a half, and I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know how to interact with this. I'm not having fun. And I'm frustrated because this feels really close to being something I would like. Mm-hmm. It was a weird one. I got this game recommended to me by a bunch of people I follow that aren't in games, a bunch of like tech reviewers. I'm not sure why. It was like people who normally wouldn't don't talk about games were recommending it, and I'm like, oh well, if non-gamers are talking about this, it must be good. No, I didn't care for an hour.
It looks like those videos. It has the same vibes as those CGI videos of like satisfying fake factory made stuff.
Yes.
Like you see a big block of steel going through on a conveyor belt, and then it slices like a perfect sphere out of it, and then the sphere turns into whatever.
Yeah, it rolls away and then gets hit by a hammer and flies, and the high quality water simulation rolls over it, and then now it's blue, and you're exactly right. That is the vibe that I was expecting.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why tech people were talking about it, because they make stuff like this in Blender all the time.
Yeah, that checks out. But no, that is still an appealing idea to me. Yeah. I think there's merit there, but I just didn't. The physics didn't really hold up. The controls were really wonky and unintuitive.
That's a shame, because it does look really neat. It looks really nice.
It feels like it's one patch update away from being something really enjoyable. But I just didn't really care for it. Mm-hmm. So, all of that to say, that is my leading question for this episode's topic.
Oh boy.
I don't believe in bad games.
What?
I don't think they exist.
What?
This insert Discord noise here.
Insert horn, like air horn. Pew, 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 pew.
No, I'm serious. I don't think, for me, I don't think that bad games exist. And I am going to convince you that that is the case today.
I'm excited for this. Sam told me the topic for today, and I said, hard disagree. Go for it, though. Try and convince me.
And I think I will. I think I will.
All right. I'm in. I'm ready for this.
All right. So we're going to start a very high level. And I'm going to lead you down kind of my thought process of why I think this way.
Okay.
And this is something that, like, this is a belief that I hold. Not really something that I'm like, this is a somewhat intentionally clickbaity way of saying something. But I do believe it, and I think that this is an opinion that I want to voice. And I think it just takes me, like, going a little bit around, taking a roundabout route to get you to see my perspective here. Okay. So, point number 1. Video games are art.
Yeah. Agree with you there.
I'm not sure what the common consensus is on that idea. I think if you would have asked in 2004, I think a lot of people would have said no. Mm-hmm. I think if you would have asked in 1980, a lot more people would have said no. 2024, I don't know. I don't know what the common consensus. I think people in our generation probably.
I want to say maybe, but I feel like with the rise of esports, I think it's shying away from it being art now. I think a few years ago, maybe everyone would have agreed that video games are art. I'm starting to think now that they're not. They're like, my video game is my tennis ball court, or my tennis court, my basketball court.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about it from the perspective of esports. But it raises the question, what is art? How, like, I was writing this script, and I'm like, okay, trying to take a very, very high level aerial space, like looking from Saturn down at Earth, high level view. And I'm like, well, what, if I want to say video games are art, what does that even mean? And then I'm like very esoterically like, well, what is art?
I'm not high enough for this episode.
So, CJ, what is art to you? What does that mean? And I don't think there's a wrong answer here.
Yeah, that's a that's a really big question. I don't think there's a right answer either.
You're wrong, but
I don't know. I think art is anything that you can enjoy, anything that's put out into the world without and this is controversial, but there's no need for art, right? Everything else in the world has a need, I think. Most things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, art would be like good old Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got like food and shelter, and then like community, and then like at the very, very tippy top, like at the very point of the pyramid would be like culture and art.
Yeah.
It's like not, maybe you consider it like a need, but it's not a necessity to live.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's more what I was going along the line with. Yeah. I would say that's what it's like. Art is people's like expression, people expressing themselves through whatever media they deem art.
Yeah, that is actually pretty damn close to what I came up with. My definition I came up with is art is an expression through the act of creation.
Oops, I swear I didn't read that. I swear I didn't read that.
No, that's cool. It's cool. We kind of came up with the same idea.
Very cool. That's right in front of me on the notes, actually. I swear I didn't read that.
And so that's a very like high level esoteric way of putting things. But, obviously like a painting. A painting is art. It's somebody like took the time to create something and was like intentional about how it's going to look. Feels easy. Music, it's the same thing, but with sound. Art and music, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Now, if you're coming at it from this perspective, I'm still in disagreement here because I've heard some bad songs and I have drawn some bad shit that my parents have hung on the fridge. So,
I've got more. Don't
Okay,
worry. Don't
okay.
worry. And I will give you plenty of. Once I've finished my spiel, I'll let you take a few punches at my at my argument. So I'm gonna push back on something you said earlier, though.
okay.
I think basketball can be art.
Okay.
I don't think it necessarily has to be, but it is the creation, expression through creation. I don't know. There's something artful about the act of like creating a skill set
Yeah.
and create like working and practicing over and over again and becoming so good at something that you can participate in it at a competitive level. I watched a lot of the Olympics this year, and it's hard for me to look at that and say like it's something. It's not a necessity to do the Olympic. I mean, exercise probably is like you need that to be alive, but it's superfluous. It is an expression of, I guess, like determination, and
Okay.
I don't know. That one's a little borderline for me, but I could see an argument for it.
I could too.
You like watch a weird example, but like, competitive Smash player, and you like see their hands moving in this insane way and like doing things that I didn't even know are possible in the game. It's skillful and it feels somewhat artistic to me. It is an expression through like determination and skill. I don't know. I'm getting into the weeds here with stuff that's not necessarily like relevant to my argument overall.
I could see it though. I think it boils down to art is, the saying, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Art is like all in the mindset of who is doing the art, I guess.
Yeah.
Or who is witnessing the art.
Yeah. And maybe it comes down to a little bit of intention. I think maybe if a basketball player viewed what they did as art, then I think it is.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily has to be, but anyway, I'm getting too in the weeds and I don't want to dilute my overall point.
Okay.
Video games are art.
Yep.
Video games are a multidisciplinary, multifaceted piece of media that, encompasses visual work. It encompasses, the act of programming and creating mechanics, sound design, music. There's all of these different components that are sometimes done by a team, done by an individual. You can definitely look at the individual components of a video game and say, well, this has art in it. Even if you objectively say, like, video games aren't art. Well, it's got visuals, it's got music, it's got all of the components. And I think as a whole, the presentation is something that is created with an intention and as an expression. And before I move on, expression, to me, I think that's kind of a esoteric word. To me, that means in doing something, leaving a piece of yourself, I guess.
Okay.
So I think anything you do, you're inherently doing it the way that only you can do it. Only you as an individual are going to do something in that exact way. Or, I mean, take a game jam. We're all given the same prompt. We're all given the same idea. A lot of us are working with the same tools, sometimes even the same asset libraries, but it's the individualism that makes it different and that creates those divergent points that ends up with completely different results. That is kind of what expression means to me. It's the individual piece that a human being brings to the table. Whether or not you're, to take like, a Van Gogh, not Van Gogh, Pablo Picasso, like abstract blocky shapes, versus this kind of new trend of art that's, like this hyper realistic woman crying that I drew with a regular number 2 pencil. And you're like, I can't believe this is not a photo. This like hyper realistic. They're both an expression. And even if one is like, to me, I see the Pablo Picasso art. I see Picasso and I'm like, that is, and I hope I got that right. I hope I got that person right. If I'm wrong, leave 3 comments.
We'll dub over it. We'll dub over it.
That art is, to me, I think that's really interesting and meaningful because I can look at it and like, I want to think about what he was thinking and what his intention was. Abstract art is very interesting to me. And, some of these hyper realistic pictures, I'm like, you drew an eye. Like, what does that mean? What is that saying? It doesn't matter because that is still like, even if you're not trying to say anything with an art and it is a piece of art and it is just like, look at how skilled I am at making this hyper-realistic drawing. It only exists in the way that it exists in like, the individual lines that are drawn and the shape of the eye and the reflections. All of that is individual to a person and would be different for everybody trying to do it, if that makes sense. That's what the expression aspect of my definition means to me, is the individual characteristics that come from the person creating the work.
I think you hit a good point there where the super hyper realistic painting or the piece of art is not so much a show of creativity as it is a show of skill, which is very much, a sport. Yeah. It's a show of skill. So yeah, I'm putting your dots together.
And my fiance, who I mentioned earlier, we were talking about this because she did a lot of art in high school and she's very, very talented. But as she views it, when she talks about it, she's like, oh, I'm not an artist because I only have skill. She's like, I'm very good at drawing things, but I don't have creativity. And that's her perspective.
Dude, I felt that. Playing, because I played a saxophone in high school, and everyone's like, dude, you're like our best band member. I'm like, dude, I'm good at following notes. I have no creativity. I could not make a song to save my life. I just understand how to play the instrument.
Right. But like, you feel that way. But any other person would say like, oh, he's a musician. And you are. Like, it's... because it's you as an individual who's playing it, and only you can play the notes the way that you do, and only Leslie can draw the way she draws, and even if it's just skill, even if that's the only aspect of it, and there's no creativity, that doesn't make it not art, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
And I don't. It's kind of like it's a little bit of like a duck test. Looks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck. You're playing music, you're a musician, like you drew that picture, it's awesome. You might not feel like you're an artist, but like you made art, you're an artist. That's a little bit of what goes into my definition as well, as like I can tell that is art, and so that my definition needs to encompass that.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that's video games are art. That's kind of my argument for that. I think most people, especially if you're listening to the show, I don't think that's something we need to spend any more time on. I think that's my stance. That's part of the basis of my argument.
Yeah, whatever I said before, I 100% agree with that. Video games are art. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
All right, point 2. Well, not really a point. Like next topic. What does it mean to be critical of art, specifically video games? And I'm going to start this one with a question as well. What does it mean to you for a video game to be good? What do you consider to be a good video game?
There's no one thing really. I think a good game is a game that I will want to come back to. Because I played many games that I enjoyed, but I'm just like, nah, I'm done. I don't want to play this anymore, and then I never touch it again. But I don't know. That's a hard question too.
Yeah.
What do you have an answer to this one?
Sort of.
Okay.
To me, a good video game is one that I keep thinking about after I play it.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
It's something that like sticks with me and then sort of becomes a part of me a little bit. You know, it shapes my view of other things that I play.
Yes, that is exactly what I was trying to get to.
Because I see your argument about wanting to come back to it, but something we talked about the other day, like Her Story, I can't play that again.
That is very true. Yeah.
Like I got the mystery. Her Story is a FMV game where you're like going through this computer and trying to solve a mystery. Once you get it, there's not really any way to go back and like re-solve the mystery.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I could go through it again and really I could maybe have fun, but I'm not going to have anywhere close to the same experience. But I think about that game all the time. It was so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I change my answer?
Yeah, of course.
that is my answer.
what he said.
Exactly. Yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Because there are games that just stick with you that, like Her Story, you just can never play those again, like ever.
So, like thinking about being critical of games, you know, that's for me. That's for you. I think looking at it broadly, like what are the things that people are critical of when they're playing a game? I think one of the most obvious ones is like, well, is it fun? You know, you're playing a game. Is it fun? You know, the game is fun. That's definitely a good component. But I can see you looking at the notes now, and you probably notice that I have some counter objectives to that. I don't think a game necessarily has to be fun for it to be good. Notably, Papers, Please is a game about like being an immigration officer, and you're having to make decisions about keeping your family alive versus letting all of these suffering people into your country. It's, you know, I haven't played it. I've seen some gameplay. Maybe it's enjoyable, but I don't think the game is supposed to be fun. It's a commentary on, you know, this experience that many people go through. It's kind of shedding light on, you know, just the complexities of these situations and how it's just a lot. But I don't think it's fun. I don't think that's the word I would describe for an experience like that. Another one is a game I heard about fairly recently. It's called Spec Ops: The Line.
Ooh, that was, I think, GMTK's video.
He did a video about that. I recommend looking that one up if you haven't seen it. GMTK, Spec Ops: The Line. Basically, at a very high level, I haven't played this one either. I don't think you can play it right now without emulation.
I think it's lost, yeah. Lost media.
It came out kind of during the big heyday of games like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, all of these like war shooter games. And it starts out and presents itself as, you know, another shoot 'em up first person shooter. And then quickly becomes like a very realistic and harrowing depiction of war and makes you make a lot of really hard decisions about, you know, just having being in a position where you have the power to end people's lives, and makes it a lot more, it takes all the peanuts and circus out of playing a fun shooting game, and kind of sits you down and is like, actually, no, actually, this is horrible, and this isn't something that should be glorified, is what the game is trying to say. And, maybe it has good shooting mechanics, maybe it's enjoyable to run around, but the game does not want you to have fun by the end. It makes you, it's wanting you to, it's an experience that it's wanting to show you, but the goal is not fun necessarily.
I would agree there. I was a little skeptical when you said Papers, Please, because that's pretty spicy. But I think I was confusing fun with good. I think is what I was doing.
Yeah, I think both of these games are great, but I don't, the high level topic is, well, when you criticize a game, when you say like, is a game good or bad, what are the things that you look at specifically? I think for a lot of people, and for me, the first thing that came to my mind was like, well, is the game fun? I don't think that's right, because there are games that are good that are not fun.
Yes.
That's an aspect that you can consider if the game is trying to be fun, maybe, but I don't think you can objectively say a game has to be fun to be good. I'm going to say another aspect when being critical of a game and trying to decide, is it good, is it bad, is the game even playable? That was my frustration with Naur, is that I couldn't figure out how to play it. It had some bugs. It was frustrating. But on the other hand, there's a lot of really popular games that are riddled with bugs, that are maybe infamous because of those bugs. Maybe the most ported game of all time is Skyrim, and
I was gonna say Bethesda, but I was like, wait, I gotta check the notes. Oh yeah, he said okay.
Yeah, maybe you can speak to that a little more than I can.
Yeah.
Does Bethesda have bugs in their games?
Just a few. That's all. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm loading up a game on itch and I can't even get the game to run because it's broken, WebGL isn't loading. I'm not gonna, I think there's an argument to say if I literally cannot play the game,
Yes.
I don't know if I can even call that a game, But if the game is working, I can't think you can objectively say that the game is bad if it has bugs.
I'm holding on.
Okay.
I'm waiting patiently.
I'm gonna throw out that sometimes I think the bugs make the game more fun. Not every time. Well, I was having a good old time in Red Dead Redemption many a year ago, and I had this idea. I had just participated in Rathskeller Fork Day and had unalived everybody in Rathskeller Fork, and I was taking I believe it was a donkey from that town, and I was like, I'm going to try and take this donkey all the way to the other side of the map. If you're wondering why I never beat Red Dead Redemption, it's because I kept doing shit like this instead of actually playing the game. So I got about halfway through the map. Rathskeller Fork is like all the way at the top. I was going down, and eventually that donkey and me just fell through the earth. And I was like, but the walking animation kept playing, and I could see the world like passing above me. It was bizarre. It was kind of like esoteric and weird. I had never laughed so hard at a video game. The donkey eventually started glitching out, and its legs grew. It kind of looked more like a horse for a minute. It just kept going on, and the music was getting weird. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it was memorable. I enjoyed it. Maybe it's not what the developers intended, but I had fun. I had fun with this horrible thing. And ultimately, I reloaded my save, and it was not a big deal. I think there's an argument to be made that, like, the game is like deleting your save file. You get halfway through, and that's not fun. That's not enjoyable.
No.
There are bugs that can make a game bad, but I don't think you can say like if a game is buggy or unpolished, it is inherently bad, because there are lots of games that are considered to be good that are buggy.
Okay. I've held on and you've pulled me up. It's okay.
Just again, like looking at common criticisms of games and saying like, can you objectively say that a game is good or bad because of these things? So far, we've gone through fun, buggy. I think there's arguments to be made that like a game is less enjoyable because of those things, but I don't think you can objectively say like, well, this game is bad because it has bugs.
That's fair.
I think another thing that I consider, like when I thought about, okay, well, what am I critical of in games? The first thing that came to mind is like soulless cash grab games, the infinite remakes, the yearly sequels, these
were going to be my argument to our game's art. Are the mobile games that are just reskin after reskin of BS that's not fun. It's just for money. Those aren't art. I mean, I guess they are, but I don't think they are.
I mean, the things I think about, yearly releases, infinite sequels that don't do anything different from the original, other than like small changes, remakes that don't add on, or in some cases are worse than the original, loot boxes or like gambling mechanics thrown in.
Yes.
And I can think of one series that does all of these things.
What series is that, Sam?
Call up Pokemon.
There it is.
Pokemon is maybe for the past 25 years, almost 30 years, one of the worst offenders of, we're going to come out with a game. They, up until this year, I think with one exception, they have released a game every single year from 1996 to 2024. I don't think a mainline game is coming this year. I think there was one other year in like 2011 that got missed, but there has been a mainline game almost every single year for Pokemon, and
you're lying, really?
I'm dead serious.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
you are correct. Wait, no, you're incorrect.
Okay.
2001 didn't have one. 2003, 2005, 2007, 2011, 2015. You're really close though.
Okay.
There's just 1 year gaps in between, but yeah.
Okay. So they're throwing a couple 1 year gaps. I think. All right. I'm glad you called me out on that, because somebody would have. Actually, if I'm wrong, leave a comment.
Yeah, we'll just cut out what I said. I was really skeptical. Like, there's no way.
But I think in recent years, since the 3D era has started, so around 2014, they have been pretty consistently having yearly releases.
Yes. Since 2016, there has been a game a year since then. Yeah.
Except for this year, maybe where they release in November. Nothing's been announced. We'll see. They might throw a little curveball at us, but anyway, this game ticks all the boxes. Yearly releases, sequels, and remake, like version exclusives. Are you kidding me? Like, okay, maybe I could see the argument in the Red and Blue days where they were expecting people to play these games on the playground, and they had this idea that you would like trade with your friends, and you can only get the full copy of the game through through collaborating and like building a community. 2024, you think that's why they're coming out with 2 games and a steel box set that contains both of them?
Yeah.
No. Like, that is for money. That is for money that they make 2 games. Maybe there's still some original person from the games who's like, no, it's for the thing. I guarantee you they're doing it because of the money, or they're not feeling too bad at all the people who buy both copies of the game and get the steel box set. And you might be thinking like, oh, nobody's buying both games. You look at the numbers of like any of the games that have only had one version, and there's not very many of them. Legends Arceus is a big one. Only had one game. Sold significantly less than any game that had two versions. It's just a thing. People do. People buy it because people want to get it all, and they don't want to talk to people, or they want to feel like they've completed everything. And sometimes you got to have both games to do it.
It is probably the biggest reason. I want to say this now that we're talking about it. Maybe I wasn't thinking about this as a kid, but I think one of the biggest reasons I never played a Pokemon game, and one of the big reasons that I have a love-hate relationship with Fortnite, is FOMO.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And that's what it's predatory. It is. I mean, they know that people want to do everything. And so they split it up, so you have to. Not to get too in the weeds with Pokemon specifically, but pointless remakes. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were actively worse than the games they were based on. They added almost nothing to the games. The art style was not one that I was fond of. They've got Pokemon hidden, but that you have to buy multiple games in order to unlock certain legendaries or mythicals. Loot boxes, not as much, not yet. They haven't done that yet. Anyway, I am a big Pokemon fan. If you've listened to the show for more than a couple episodes, I can't stop myself from talking about it.
Secretly, I take a shot every time you say Pokemon in an episode.
He's dying.
At the end of every episode, I am completely out.
But man, like, if we're gonna talk about a game that does all those negative, there's a word for it, like whatever, dark practices, in order to get people to play and spend more money and be locked in. Pokemon checks all those boxes. I love Pokemon. I like, that is one of my favorite series, and despite everything that I've said, I think that those games are good. I think that there are some entries in the series that were less polished. Sword and Shield, Scarlet and Violet. I think that there are some games that, some remakes that maybe didn't do as much as they could have. But I think those games are good. I think that even though they have core mechanics that haven't changed really in nearly 30 years, I think that every game has built on the original games and has tried to do something interesting, and they have built on the previous game in some way. And they make a lot of money doing so, but you can almost view it as somebody who is practicing by drawing the same type of thing over and over again. You can see the progression, you can see the skill build up, except for their 3D art. No, the 3D art has gotten better. The 3D art has gotten better over time. Asterisk. But there is an improvement. The mechanics become less grindy and less like you have to spend countless hours doing tedious stuff. Like when you're as invested in the series as I am, and you play all the games, you can see these changes, and you can see how they're trying to do things different and improve. And that matters to me. And I think the games are good because they're trying something. You can see the intention, and you can see the effort that goes into, behind all the bullshit, behind the paywalls, behind the cash grabs. You can see that there are people working at Game Freak who care and who are trying to do something good and are putting part of themselves into the game. And you might not have fun with those games, you might not enjoy them, but I don't think you can look. I think there's a lot of people who would disagree with you if you say Pokemon are bad games. I
think there's quite a few that would disagree there.
I think there's a lot of people who would agree with you, especially if you go to Reddit. But I think it is the most popular media franchise in terms of money. I think that you would. I think there's a lot of people who would disagree. So you can't, like, my stepping back again. Can you say soulless games are objectively bad? I don't think so. I think Pokemon checks all the boxes for a soulless cash grab series. Can't say that it's objectively bad. My mind immediately went, and I'm sorry, to like Call of Duty. It went to like the yearly sports releases that, to me as an outsider, so I'm like, God, they come out with FIFA 24, 25. You know, the same damn game every time. I don't play those games. I don't know what they're doing year over year. And I guarantee you there's somebody just like me who's like so excited to be working in game development, and like that's their job, and they're living their dream. And I guarantee there's somebody there putting everything they have into making the parts of the game they're working on good. Despite all the other bullshit, despite everything else that gets layered on top, I think that there's people who care working on every game, no matter the quality at the end.
Okay. I can agree asterisk.
All right.
What about like the countless, like these are even more soulless than that, the countless mobile games that look like shit, play like shit, and literally only exist to take people's money. Like, I know that the people working on that weren't putting out art. They just wanted money.
Yeah.
This is my only argument against your entire thing.
My rebuttal is Flippy Knife, which checks every single one of those boxes.
Okay.
And I paid for the full version. I paid $14 for the full version of that game, stupidly, foolishly. It was because I got tired of watching an ad every single time I flipped the knife. But man, it was fun. I had fun with it. And though, despite the fact that those games are soulless and like manipulative and like are meant to take your money, they're asset, like not even asset flips, because they can't be bothered to put assets in them. And you know the little white blob running around. Yeah. Sometimes they're fun. Sometimes the mechanics in those games are legitimately interesting, and I'm like, why is this idea wasted on this thing?
All right.
I don't think that fun objectively makes a game good, but I don't think the game would be fun if somebody didn't care at all.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, that's fair, but I still think there are bad games.
That's fair, but I don't think you can objectively say
you're right.
They're bad.
I can't say that for fact, but I feel in my bones that a game is bad.
Yeah.
But it's very fair.
That's fair.
I see where you're coming from.
I'm gonna throw a curveball at myself.
Okay.
And I might regret this. The one thing that I wasn't able to justify were casino games.
Okay.
That I grappled with it for a while, and I'm like, well, I know CJ occasionally goes to the casino, so I wanted to hear what you had to say.
Allow me. Things spin and I get money. That's fun. Things spin and I lose money. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's there. I guess I don't know if you could. Again, I think I'm confusing fun and good here. Mm-hmm. They can be fun, winning or losing. But they're not good. They're not good games, I don't think. I don't enjoy it. I just want to win. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I can justify these as being good games.
I struggle with that too. Not to kick a hole in my own argument, and I maybe should have saved this for later, but like I struggle to justify games that prey on very
careful what you say, because I am whatever you say next.
It not necessarily everybody, but I think casino games tend to prey on a population that's already vulnerable and are susceptible to a certain level of manipulation. Not everybody, but you go to the casino and I'm like, I know you don't have the money to be here.
Yeah.
But you've convinced yourself that if you just, a little more and you try a little more, like you're going to make what you put back in. that's evil. That's evil. But I don't know.
I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
That being said, the guy who made Five Nights at Freddy's spent a long time making casino games before that game came out, and I'm like, would he have ended up where he ended up today if not for like, spending that time? And I see all of the care and time and energy he put into those other games. Did none of that go into the casino games? I'm sure he made them for the money, but I have a hard time believing that there was no intention or thought put into those games, despite the fact that I don't think that they are. I think that they're very manipulative and, all the things I said about Pokemon, I think are tenfold in a casino game. But, there can be talented people working on them. And I think there are people who, despite knowing what they're doing is not good for the world, still put something of themselves into it. Even if, putting something in as, again, it's an inherent expression because this is a person putting their time into it.
That I understand. Yeah.
It's, again, that is the fringe of my argument. I feel like it holds for a lot of things, but though that's the point where it maybe falls apart a little bit. I'll admit that. All right, you ready? You ready for this?
Okay.
All right. Here's where I'm gonna put it all together.
Okay.
Art is objectively subjective. Okay.
Okay.
So, objective, like proven, certain for you can't argue with the fact that art is subjective.
Yeah.
And very, very simple, high level way to think about that. You and I could look at the same piece of art and I could say that's rad, and you could say that's dog shit.
Yeah.
It's beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Art is subjective.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Me saying that's dog shit really doesn't have any meaning in that, is what you're saying.
Right. I mean, it has meaning, and that's how you feel, but that doesn't change the art, and it doesn't. There's that doesn't mean that other people can't like it. And the world is so big, and there's so many people that there's probably somebody who does.
True.
So I think a game or piece of art, it could be ugly or boring, uninteresting, derivative, broken, soulless, all of the above. But two things hold true regardless. Somebody loves that game. And somebody made that game. I'm not a wizard. I can't objectively prove that for every game that there's somebody who likes it. I can say objectively that right now in 2024, I can say that somebody made it. That might not hold true forever.
Yeah.
Another conversation for another day. But right now, I can say that a person made it. And to me, because somebody likes the game and somebody made it, and inherently through the act of creation put some part of themselves into it, that means to me that I think there is value there. And because of that, I think that there is good. To me, those things mean that a game can't be bad. I can not enjoy it. I can hate it. I can have a bad time. But because somebody made it and somebody probably likes it, I can't say that it's bad. And that's where that's kind of like the crux of my feelings behind all this, and I think why I feel the way that I do. And I think hearing all that, if you or the listener, if you're like, no, I don't agree, we're probably not going to see eye to eye. Like that's probably just a difference of, a fundamental difference in the way that we look at things. I don't think games can be bad because somebody made them and somebody enjoys them.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. And I disagree, but I see
that. No, that's fair.
I see where you're coming from, though.
So I'll.
Well, no,
I'll,
I don't disagree. I know what you're saying. I can feel like games are bad, and the way that you can feel like no games are bad, I can feel that games are bad.
That's fair. That's very fair. So let me. I had one more thing I wanted to say, and then I want to get into let you start punching holes, or even just say how you feel after all of this. I don't think that art can be bad because art is a human expression of some kind, and I think the fact that it is human has inherent value. That a human making something has value to me, and that can't be bad to me. I can always see the intent and the thought, and maybe not. I want to say the love. I can't say that objectively, but I know that there was something of somebody put in there, and the fact that it was made by a person means that there's something of value, and decisions were made by that person that could only have been made by that person specifically, and it resulted in whatever art that I'm seeing or the game that I'm playing. And those decisions, those micro, I'll draw a line here, things that you might not even be thinking about, those are what makes the final product and are a inherent reflection of that person. And that will always have value to me. Regardless of the quality, the humanness of it always shines through and always has a value that lifts it above being bad.
That's fair.
And that's my argument. That's to me, a game can't be bad because it's human, because it is a human expression of some kind. Now, I shall open the floor for rebuttal.
No, I 1,000,000,000% agree that art is subjective and video games are art. But humans don't always make good things.
Yeah.
humans made war and currency and hate. Those are all human things, and those are all bad.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say everything made by a human is good, but that is literally my only argument. I see where you're coming from, and I don't think that we should be labeling just there. It's not black and white. We definitely shouldn't be labeling games as bad just because of we don't like it, right?
Right.
I don't know. This has been eye opening.
I feel like I have not necessarily controversial, but different opinions on things like this. Is anything else in terms of rebuttal or anything that you wanted to say about art in general?
I think I'm just too weathered. I hate. There's things that I just don't like, and I'm like, that's bad because I don't like it, and I know that it's not. This is really hard to say what I want to say because I 100% agree with you, but I still have opinions.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm trying to say, but yeah.
All right. So I've made my point. I'm going to take a step back and I'll start kicking holes in my own argument. Again, going back to the duck test, the game looks bad, the game plays bad. I don't like it. It's a bad game. It's a little bit semantic. It's a little bit semantic to say well, a game can't be bad because of the definition that I give to good or bad. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
You could. What bad means to me is different than what it means to you necessarily.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I don't like to just argue about semantics without a reason. So I have a reason that I think that it's important to talk about this, and it's important to, like you said, not necessarily label things as good or bad.
Yeah.
And so the last section is, why are we talking about this at all? Like, what is the point of this argument, of this like clickbaity episode? I think that for games to be viewed as art, they need to be treated as art and critiqued as art. And I think that, to me, I think it's important that they be treated with some level of like professionalism and seriousness, and all of the work that goes into games deserves to be appreciated.
Yes. Yes.
I think that in the gaming sphere, there is a certain culture of negativity around games. Like, a game comes out and it like does, Pokemon Sword and Shield comes out, and they make experience share on full time, and it's a bad game. It's a bad game. Like, I think experience share is stupid. I don't think it should be on all the time. It's a bad game. Like, the vitriol and the frothing at the mouth in the Pokemon subreddits when that feature was announced. I mean, it was like people were pissed. People were pissed and people were angry. And that's fine. You have every right to be to have opinions about games. But I think that the gaming sphere has created this culture of just like dunking on games and like talking about how bad they are. And I think if you're watching this on YouTube, I think YouTube is a little bit part of the problem. I think that the platform rewards negativity, and it rewards having these very strong opinions. And like, what's gonna get more clicks? A balanced take on Pokemon Sword and Shield, or Pokemon Sword and Shield are the worst Pokemon games ever. Edited face with like big, exclamation points, red text. Like, there is a certain type of content that is rewarded.
Yes.
And not just that, but like, go back, and this is no shade at any specific person, but like YouTube itself as a platform has gotten as big as it is on the back of like video game content. Like the people who were using YouTube first are like sketch comedians and YouTube and video game people, like playing games, talking about games. And a big part of that culture is just like playing crappy NES games that were, poorly made or like not thought out well, and just, dunking on them and making fun of them. And I think that, like, that being the point from which YouTube is developing has been a through line in the culture of how people talk about games. It's like, and I say this because I will talk to my friends. I'll be like, hey, the new Pokemon game came out. What do you think? And instantly I will hear I will hear all of this negativity and all of this like, well, it didn't do this, and then they got rid of this feature, and then they did this, and like, that's fine. But I'm like, you do not have your own opinion. I know, I can tell you exactly what YouTubers you watch.
Yeah.
I have heard that opinion before, and that's fine. But when everybody's getting their opinions from a platform that rewards negativity, the conversation is going to be negative.
Yes. I'll say I'm pretty guilty of not having my own opinion on things.
Oh, same.
But like, I try to avoid those, like the negative. All the one streamer that I watch is like a chill guy who rarely talks bad about games and stuff. He just has a really nice community. The YouTubers that I watch are all similarly. I try to avoid those like naysayer people. But I see what you're saying about early day YouTube. Like, Angry Video Game Nerd, I know, is one that you said you're not a big fan of before. I didn't mind him.
I haven't, to be fair, I haven't watched a lot of his content. I've maybe seen one or two videos, and I have not given him his fair shake. But, obviously, a very influential guy.
Yeah.
Like, a big crux for just content on YouTube in general.
Yeah. He spawned many of the video game reviewers that came after him. And his style never felt like he was attacking those. It always felt more in fun, like he's a character who's always angry at stuff. But you're right in that it has evolved into like really polarizing opinions now, where people are just either I hate this and it should die, or this is the best thing ever and you shouldn't play anything else. And anything in between is boring and you don't want to click on that stuff.
Right. And I'm guilty of that just as much as anybody else.
Oh yeah, me too.
The algorithm, it works for a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. But I've been actively trying to, like, I don't know, the YouTubers I watch are all middle road usually. Like I try not to watch the people that are really hyperactive about the stuff that they either love or hate. But still guilty of watching those anyway.
Man, same. And I feel like it's been this slow over the past 10 years, like slowly taking every YouTuber I would watch in high school out behind the woodshed and like hitting that unsubscribe button because I'm like, you are just, I'm sorry, but you are just miserable.
Yeah.
And like everything you say is so negative and like, this is a good game. And you've like this algorithm of like forcing you to make this negative content so you can keep the lights on at home, so you can keep getting views, has like kind of morphed you into this very pessimistic person, and I just don't enjoy your content anymore. And this has been multiple times I've felt the need that I'm like, I just don't like your content anymore because it's always so depressing and negative. And I'm like, this was a good game, but you're acting like it's Bubsy 3D.
Yeah.
Only joking.
Just for clicks and views, yeah. But I don't know. Outside of the world of video games, like people, like actors in shows who play like a bad role or the show was bad or something, and then they get death threats and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like I think the developers of Halo did something once, and they started getting death threats sent to Bungie or something, if I'm remembering correctly. That kind of stuff needs to be called out and stopped. That's crazy.
I think that is like the absolute most extreme version of this mindset.
Yes.
And again, I don't want to say you don't have any right to be upset when a game isn't what you expected, or when a game you were looking forward to turns out to be like not what you like. Especially in this era of like remakes and sequels, where it's like, oh my God, they're remaking Jack and Daxter. Can you believe it? And then it's like, a looter shooter MOBA, other 4-letter acronym, like, my God, I would be pissed for you. I would be I'd be like heartbroken.
Yeah.
And when there's these inherent expectations that come from like reviving these series and doing sequels and remakes that you are going to disappoint people, and these expectations are there, but I think the conversation could be like, well, the game did this good, the game did this bad, ultimately I didn't like it, and instead it's like, this is the worst thing ever, and I hate it, and not to be like a the children clutching my pearls, but kids are very impressionable. As a child who watched a lot of YouTube, like I'm like, oh yeah, that game sucks. I know, I get it, but there's some amount of like, kids just take everything very seriously, and kids get like 90% of their information from YouTube, and that definitely like fuels this very binary mindset. And ultimately, I think it's not good to view things as either extremely good or extremely bad.
Yes.
But also, I think it's boring. I think it's boring to view things like that.
Yeah.
It's not interesting because if you're number one, if you're saying it's really good or really bad, I don't trust you as a reviewer because 99% of the time, that if you're doing a is it good or is it bad, the answer will be, it depends. Because it depends on what you like, it depends on what you don't like. There are aspects of it that'll be good. Questions about good or bad, if we were being honest and you really get down to it, will always be somewhere in the middle. And so conversations about is it good or is it bad aren't interesting to me. And I've had the same like experience with movies over time where, I would watch reviews or like impressions before going to see something. And ultimately I'm like, why do I like the answer? The thing is always like, well, if you like this type of thing, you'll enjoy it. If you like this type of thing, you won't. Who cares? Like that's not it. It's not interesting to me. And I think that there are more interesting conversations to be had if you stop looking at the binary of good or bad.
Yeah, 1,000%. And back to what you were saying about how there's people behind these games. A recent game that got pretty badly reviewed, Redfall. You heard of that game, right?
I did hear about that one, yeah.
It was, I think it was published by Bethesda, I believe. It was made by Arcane, the people that made Dishonored. It got horribly reviewed. People were shitting on it left and right, and like, could you imagine being the person that worked on this?
Yeah,
that would like hurt. That would fucking hurt.
Oh my god, it would destroy me
Yeah.
inside. I mean, that's my nightmare. Like, genuinely, I don't want to think about that.
And I don't think the comments that are saying why it's bad hurt as much as people just saying, this was shit and it should never have been made, stuff like that.
Bad game, move on.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
Garbage, just like boiling down this entire complex, multifaceted, multidimensional piece of art to a trash game.
Yeah.
It's just...
It's sad.
It sucks. It's sad.
Yeah.
It's, dismissive, and ultimately it's not really helpful to anybody.
No.
And again, I'm not here to like police what people say online.
Yeah,
whatever.
no.
If that's you and that's like how you engage with things, whatever. But I think as people who are like in positions of like reviewing and have a following and have a channel and are like in a weird way like a culture leader, I think there's some amount of responsibility that comes with like how you talk about things.
Yes.
And is just something to be. I'm not talking to anyone specifically, but for me, it's like it's something I want to be aware of, and something that just the way that you talk about things matters. Yeah,
I 100% agree. I think you turned me around
Yeah?
here at the end. I agree with you. I agree with this whole thing.
my last note that I wanted to say is that if you take all of the complexity and the thought and the culture and the individualism that goes into making a game into good or bad, it's not treating the game as a work of art. It's treating it as a product to be bought. And, I can have a good or bad vacuum because if it doesn't vacuum my floor well, I'm going to return it and I'm going to be mad.
Yeah.
Good or bad are things that you buy. If games are to be treated as something more than a product, the way that we talk about them needs to evolve as well.
I 100% agree. I will say that this whole conversation about is a game bad or there are no such thing as a bad game, Sam had this idea before we submitted Stretchers. This isn't a direct response to all the comments telling us that we need to change our game. Sam had this idea before we made Stretchers.
Yeah, that's true. It's not and honestly, like I don't think I've been really like. Well, you can tell that the people who left comments on the game also make games.
Yeah.
And like, some of them might be like, you shouldn't have done this, and maybe a little bit harsher than others. But ultimately, like, everybody's like, I can see what you were trying to do.
Yeah, no.
I can see the intention. This didn't work the way that I think it could have been. But like I see, nobody's saying like this is trash, this is a bad game.
Yeah, no.
When you throw it out into the wider sphere, that conversation might be different. But
all the comments were good. And on the other end of the spectrum, there were comments that were just like, "This was good," and that was it. And I'm like, "Well, that was nice of you."
yeah.
But I kind of wanted more.
And I'm guilty of that too.
Oh, no,
Sometimes
no,
I
no,
don't
no.
have anything more to say, and I'm like, I could come up with something better to say, but I want to review. I'm ready to play the next game. I'm just gonna say I liked it.
Yeah,
Thumbs
no.
up, smiley emoji.
No. No, I did that too on a lot of
Yeah.
games. I'm just like, "Hey, this was great. I can't think of more. I wish I could."
And definitely part of this, I had the idea before the episode, but I was playing through a lot of games on itch.io, and there were some that were less playable than others, and there were some that looked better than others. And as I'm like forcing myself to play this game that doesn't work very well, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, how can I make a case for a game's not being bad when I'm not having a good time right now? And ultimately I was like, well, how do I enjoy this game that I'm not enjoying? And I'm like, what were they thinking? What were they thinking about while they made this game? How did they interpret the theme? And just like trying to think about the intention and the thought that went into it made those games that were less enjoyable because they were made in 48 hours without any playtest, made them more enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
And so I think if there's anything to take away, it's like evolving your mindset about how you view games might allow you to enjoy games you might not otherwise have a good time with.
Yeah. 100%. And most importantly, form your own opinions, people.
Yeah. That's been something I've been trying to take an active role.
Yeah.
And I don't really watch reviews anymore of any kind. But like me in high school, I didn't have any opinions. I just let my opinions be formed by, movie reviewers and video game reviewers. And sometimes I wouldn't even watch the movie or play the game, and I would already know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not great for me.
Nah, not for anybody. Yeah. This, open your third eye, in other words.
Yeah. Any last thoughts? Any last thoughts about art, games, game criticism? Open floor.
Thanks for bringing this topic, because this is not something I actively thought about. It's definitely something that's like passively been in the back of my mind. But yeah, and you did change my view at the last second. I was disagreeing with you up until that last section where we talked about just being viewed as art rather than a product. People behind the games, are people, and they should be respected as such. You turn my views around. I'll say that much.
There's a lot of empathy that comes from making any of your own work. Like, my God, I was so much more critical until I made until we made a Caterpillar. I'm like, oh no, that was hard. That was hard to even get anything working. People make good games. Oh my God.
Exactly. I felt that.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna say, if you think, make your own art. Doesn't matter if it's good, because it doesn't, good or bad is irrelevant. What matters is you made it.
Yep.
And even if you're like, I don't like how this turned out, it's still something that exists and something that you put into the world. And eventually you're going to look back at it and, it's something that you made and you could have not made it. It's something that exists and something that you did. And it's a reflection of who you were at the time that you made it. And there's something really awesome about going back and looking at things that you've done and seeing who you were at that time.
Yeah.
So make games, make art, make crappy games, make shitty art that you are embarrassed by.
Yeah.
Because it's better than not.
Yeah.
And that's how
Being
bad at something is the first step to being sort of good at something.
Exactly. Did Sam change your mind today? Did you already have this mindset? Is such thing as bad games?
Yeah. Genuinely, like, if you made it this far, genuinely, like, let me know. Let me know if you're like, you're wrong. If you think I'm wrong, I want to hear it. Like, I'm interested in hearing other viewpoints, and I think that this conversation in general is just an interesting one to have. And just let me know what you think about art. Let us know if there is a game that you played that was so unenjoyable that you think it is like I agree with everything you say except for Assassin's Creed 2. That game sucked. That game is bad. Let us know the games you hate, the games that you don't like. It's all interesting. It's all interesting to hear.
Don't ever diss Assassin's Creed 2 though, brother. That's a good one.
All right. Well, this was Systems in Play, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks.
Bye.